It's been some time since we last spoke about Princess Zelda, but I think after all this time, there's a lot more to say about Nintendo's Elven Princess. In my 3-part series on Zelda, I focused on her role across the Legend of Zelda games and how she evolved over time. Now, before I do anything, I need to first look at some of the feedback from that series. Well, what can I say, but the feedback was actually pretty good. Those that commented really enjoyed the series. Our friend of the channel, Apophis, does make a good note though that we didn't look into the animated series, which has a different interpretation of the princess. This is one of the things we'd like to rectify with our new videos on Princess Zelda. However, the key thing that we'd like to first talk about was brought up by the user Open Spaces 5263. I'm going to say it like that because why not? Thank you for making me aware of this trope that I had never heard of, but God, this is so true in relation to Princess Zelda! In my previous 3 parts, I tried to focus more on the positives of Zelda's evolution over time and how she isn't just a damsel in distress, as many might think her, especially in the earlier titles. It is true, Zelda is indeed not just a damsel. However, what holds her back is being a faux action girl in the majority of titles. But what do I mean by this? The faux action girl is pretty much an action girl whose badassery and such is only informed content and never shown. She's meant to be a hero, but is never seen doing heroic things. We're only told about the cool stuff she's done, and never see this on screen. For Zelda, her actions are often off-screen, informed to us in manuals and such. She's meant to represent the virtue of wisdom, and as such, we shouldn't have to see her do things. She's more of a politician, a strategist, you might say. Let's be real, in more than one game she makes the wrong decision, which is fine. She can't always be perfect, and a fallible character is often more interesting than a perfect one. She may give Link perhaps a task at some point in the game, but she's often not an active guide, helping lead the action against the evil and invading forces in Hyrule. She's often off to one side, not doing much, while Link, alone or with his friends and companions, do all the heavy lifting. Even if she was used as a politician or strategist, we would see her more in meetings where next steps are discussed, but Zelda is kind of a once and done, go do the thing person. What I just said is actually inspired from this section of Open Spaces 5263's comment. This always seems to be the issue when Link had travelling companions. They just couldn't have Zelda do anything despite being the serious protagonist. Because of said games, her role was used by another character, and, in many instances, Zelda feels like a side character in her own series 90% of the time, minus instances like in Ocarina of Time or Skyward Sword and Breath of the Wild, though this doesn't help much when she is a faux action girl. This also frustrates me because it's never with male characters, and when it is, it's a rare occurrence. Males get to be in the action, and when they aren't, they simply don't appear or have a specific reason that makes sense. With a female, like Tetra's case, it's simply, oh yeah, she's the girl, so Damsel, that's her script, because they couldn't think of a way to make her involved, and her being reckless in the beginning of Phantom Hourglass doesn't excuse that. It's like when writers reduce a female to a healer in an action-oriented story, and while you don't need to be strong physically to be strong, at the same time nobody wants a passive character on either end, in a series centered around action. Not only that, but Zelda's most significant quote-unquote action incarnations, more often than not, have to not be Zelda, a princess, in order to do things. Sheik is a persona, a disguise Zelda puts on, a distinctly male disguise in Sheik's first introduction. Princess Zelda is Tetra's secret identity, her heritage, and as soon as our sassy pirate becomes Zelda, she can't be active anymore, slammed shut in a basement until she's kidnapped. In regards to this, our commenter said this: "One thing I always disliked is how the games could never have Zelda display any amount of strength in the same way Samus Aran or Princess Peach can, whilst she is just Zelda. She can only do things while she's under the guise of something else. Even in Spirit Tracks, she's a phantom the whole game. In Smash, Sheik is clearly dominant, and Zelda loses agency when Tetra loses her Tetra persona. Zelda is the literal textbook example of a faux action girl that for some reason Nintendo fans find strong, when in reality she's only given elements to look strong, when she's easily the weakest Nintendo female combat and character-wise. As much as Peach gets the label of damsel, she is also simultaneously more active than Zelda." They make a good point. Zelda is often depicted as being more powerful and active in comparison to Princess Peach, but when you look at their franchise libraries as a whole, well... Peach is often relegated to damsel in distress a lot of the time, but she is not a faux action girl. In many spin-off titles, and the very few main titles, Peach's heroics are actually shown. We see her actively fight against evil on the same level as Mario, equal to him and his other companions. We see her sneak around Bowser and his troops during captivity. In any sense, assuming Peach is lesser than Zelda is just plain wrong. Take Subspace Emissary, for example. Peach and Zelda are put on the exact same level as one another. They are equally as helpless against P.T. Piranha. You can save only one of them, and it doesn't change the story very much at all. When they are finally freed on the Hellbird, Zelda disguises herself as Sheik while they fight their way through the ship, whereas Peach is just her. Peach can be super feminine and a badass, but Zelda can't? When Zelda is allowed to be part of the action as Princess Zelda, she does significantly less than Link. Link always has to fight physically and performs the final blow. Zelda often only uses her magic to seal away evil or has to be protected while she attacks. Even then, with Tetra and Sheik, most of the cool stuff you could think about them are rarely ever seen. For example, Sheik is a warrior, but you don't see Sheik fight outside of spin-off titles. With Tetra, she's at her best in Wind Waker, until she becomes Zelda, only gaining back some agency in the final boss fight. However, in Phantom Hourglass... I will always hate what they do with Tetra in Phantom Hourglass. I've seen the defense where people say, but she's out of the picture because of her recklessness. That is just an explanation, not an excuse, and even then, that aspect of her personality vanishes once she's turned back from stone as she displays a more cheerful, passive persona. If this only amounted to her being petrified, then I could buy this, but it takes until the end of the game for the crew to free her from the stone, while she remains in Linebeck's ship. Then, once she's saved, she doesn't even get to show off her pirate skills in the climax. She's just kidnapped by Bellin immediately after being freed. Why couldn't she tag along with Link and Linebeck for the climax? Hell, her helping Link save Linebeck from Bellin's possession would have been symbolic in how he helped save her. Bellin kidnapping Tetra had nothing to do with her recklessness. It's simply because the developers had no idea what to do with her. Tetra's treatment in this game creates what I consider to be the biggest underlying problem in what I dub disposable female syndrome, where developers have no idea to think of any contribution for their lead female character to do anything in the story, so they just make them lose their agency as a cop-out to say, oh, you know they still exist, right? Well, our male characters have this epic adventure to play. Wait, what about our female lead? Oh, yeah, they have something that happens to them and the males rescue them. Draft done. Either add a character in a meaningful way or don't add them at all. It's just a lazy cop-out for a story element. Compare this to the manga, where Tetra is more proactive and even has a duel with Link at one point. What is the point of her being the leader of a crew? She wasn't strong on either offense in Phantom Hourglass. They could have had her duel with Link as a fun gameplay tutorial, and once free from stone, she assists in taking down Bellin. She went from being a snarky, cut-off pirate captain who takes no fucks, but has a caring heart underneath her exterior, to a passive, help me, damsel in the sequel, simply because Nintendo doesn't know how to write good females who aren't Samus Aran or Princess Peach, but only Peach at her best. I know why, because they already had the adventure in Phantom Hourglass occupied by two male protagonists, so with Tetra, they couldn't think of a way to make her useful, so they damsel her. I always hate when developers do this, because it shows lazy character writing. In Phantom Hourglass, Tetra is barely even a faux action girl. It's mentioned in the opening story that she's the leader, savvy, brave, and brash. As our commenter says, Tetra ends up with a passively cheerful persona for most of the game, so we barely see any of her brash attitude unless she's snapping at her crew. She also doesn't make any good savvy decisions. She goes alone onto the ghost ship, not even taking Link. She doesn't help Link fight, even though she could have likely swam over to assist them. Like I said in the confounding damsel, any character could have been the damsel in that game, and Link's sister Hyrule would make more sense and allow Tetra to be herself. In some way, this storybook opening is indicative of Tetra's treatment, how she was once a pretty strong female character who turned into a pile of feces when she became a princess. This story, even more so, is indicative of Zelda's across the series. It starts out meaning to be a story about her, the Legend of Zelda, yet her story is co-opted to tell one about Link's heroics. Talking about this trope is actually quite important as we travel into analysing her and further adaptations and additions to the Legend of Zelda series. Does she remain a faux action girl? A damsel? Or do we actually get to see her kick some ass? done this, we'd like to keep this episode relatively short-ish, so we'll stick to the games that I missed. Why? Well, I was finally able to do some proper digging into those that I noted on last time, but missed out on. Also, Tis the Kingdom, then Echoes of Wisdom released, and that's going to be a big one, just covering those two. First, as a quick factoid, the Satellaview games were the first ever Zelda games with proper voice acting. BS, The Legend of Zelda, had characters talk to the player, while Ancient Stone Tablets had the characters speak to one another, not just the player. Fun facts! Fierce dragons have been causing havoc and refuse to live in peace. Link's sweetheart, Princess Zelda, has now been kidnapped by the evil dragons and is held inside a deep dungeon. For some reason, the dragons also have fragments of the Triforce, and once defeated, Link obtains them. Once the Triforce is complete, Zelda is free. Yay! While a remake of the original NES title, this game has some slight alterations that I thought I should comment on. So, a narrator tells a story similar to that of A Link to the Past's Imprisoning War prologue, except it's called the Sealing War. After the narration, Zelda's voice breaks through. She has been imprisoned in a dungeon by an evil power. She calls for a hero to rise as Hyrule is in danger. Then the game plays out similar to the original game, just with improved graphics, music, and a voiceover popping in from time to time to guide you and give tips. The game is broadcast in 4 parts, with new dungeons and items appearing each week to progress the story. The hero, who is not Link, visits the kingdom through dreams, in a sense, as the world only exists for the time of the broadcast, with the old man storing your memories and gear to allow you to continue progressing through each weekly broadcast, as you collect the 8 pieces of the Triforce. At about 45 minutes into the last broadcast, Ganon will take out the old man and set up residence in his cave, the opening cave where you get the sword. If you have 8 Triforce pieces and the silver arrows, you can take him on. Behind the cave is a new short dungeon-like area that you open with your complete Triforce piece. Inside, you defeat Ganon, take his Triforce piece, and free Princess Zelda. She thanks you for answering her plea. I only included the Satellaview version of The Legend of Zelda here, as it is, in all honesty, an altered update to the game that started it all, even if the game falls out to the dates that I gave for this era. So, do these titles fit into this section from my last video? At a base level, certainly. Zelda is kidnapped, held against her will, and is eventually saved. However, these two titles lack a lot of the nuance that the mainline titles hide within manuals and such. In the manual for the Game & Watch game, the dragons do not seem to have any reason to kidnap Zelda. She has been devolved to the base princess trope of being held in a dungeon by a dragon, and her hero must slay the dragon to save her. Granted, given the limitations of the device, it's not like they could do overly much with the story. The main difference for the princess and Link is that they are confirmed a couple for this title. For BS The Legend of Zelda, the basic plot is similar with only a few adjustments for the new hero. For one, this hero is not found by Zelda's nursemaid Impa or the princess's command. Like in A Link to the Past, Zelda telepathically calls out to the hero to save her kingdom and free her. It makes Zelda the direct dispatcher instead of Impa being the dispatcher by proxy. Honestly, who sends the hero off on the journey doesn't make much difference, but having Zelda unable to contact anyone once captured heightens the danger she is in, as she has no idea if her plan with Impa had worked out or not. So, overall these games sort of fit in. Cool, let's move on to the next one. 6 years after the events of A Link to the Past, Link has left Hyrule for other shores, but Princess Zelda has been having prophetic dreams of a threat to the land. One day she sees a strange light in the east of Hyrule and leaves to investigate. There she meets Agina, Sahasrara's brother, and they discover a youth from another land there unconscious. The character can be male or female. Together they take the youth to a nearby shrine and check them over for wounds. After some small talk, Agina reveals that his brother has left to find Link and asks Zelda to return to Hyrule Castle for her own safety. She agrees, but mentions she feels a strange power in the youth, thinking they could be the hero of light. The hero is sent on their quest by Agana, hearing his and sometimes a fortune teller's voice as a guide. Their quest is to investigate the evil goings-on at the Eastern Temple. 40 minutes into week 1's broadcast, a soldier declares that the princess is missing. A few minutes later, Zelda telepathically calls out to save her in a glade south of the Eastern Temple, as monsters are after her. The hero defeats the Octoroks who chased her, preventing her return to the castle. Zelda thanks the hero, introduces herself, and asks to be escorted to Hyrule Castle. As they travel, she recounts the earlier dialogue between her and Agana. The youth was unconscious after all, and hints that the hero reminds her of Link. She thanks the youth again after they arrive at the castle, and a maid arrives and gives the Hero of Light some rupees as a reward. At the end of week 1, in the castle, Agana and Zelda thank the hero for their deeds thus far, and discuss the mysterious stone tablets that were discovered by the hero while exploring. Agana suggests Zelda accompany the youth, but she states she should not leave the castle again. Agana and the hero head to Kakariko village, leaving the princess in safety. Week 2 doesn't involve Zelda very much, as the hero quests to collect more of the ancient stone tablets. She follows a role similar to Agana and the fortune teller, with her voice calling out at points, often with hints on how to defeat bosses, with Link having told her about his adventure, aka the story of A Link to the Past and all of the bosses he fought there. At the end of the week, the trio meet once again in Hyrule Castle to talk about the hero's exploits. Zelda remembers that Link had the Book of Mudora in his house, and that if they consult it, they'll understand the strange writing on the tablets. The hero and Agana then head to Link's house. In week 3's broadcast, Agana states he's struggling to find the book, so sends the hero out to find more of the tablets in the meantime. Zelda wonders whether they have found the book yet. She states that she could see the future if she calms her heart, but instead asks for a soldier to summon the fortune teller so they can divine where the book is. From then on, Zelda takes on the advisory role that Agana did, since he's busy looking for the book. She seems often irritated that the fortune teller keeps divining things unrelated to the book's location. Zelda also has dialogue with soldiers who tell her news, like shops having sales or rare potions being crafted. Near the end of the broadcast, the fortune teller finally divines that the Book of Mudora is in the basement. Zelda then sends a soldier to tell Agana. At the end, the hero meets Agana, who has found the book but cannot read it. They return to the castle to show it to Zelda. Zelda reads the book, surmising that the language on the tablet is the same as the ancient Hylian language. She translates the script for Agana and the hero, telling them to go to the mountain where the silver arrows are buried. The hero and Agana travel to Death Mountain, staying in the church on the way there. Week 4 starts with Zelda hurriedly joining Agana and the hero the next day. She had another dream where she was reading the Book of Mudora on the mountaintop. She asks the hero to take her to the summit. Agana tries to persuade her not to, but Zelda won't budge, as only she can read the book before rushing out. With this, Zelda is the hero's companion. She'll follow you everywhere, through dungeons, though she evidently won't if you take her to the summit immediately. She reminisces about her escape from the castle dungeon with Link as she travels with the hero. At the summit, Zelda senses a terrible power, like something was sealed there. She states that using the book and the 8 tablets shouldn't do it. Zelda asks the hero to wait for her to figure out the seal's mystery, and that she'll be safe if they leave her, that she'll call for them when she's finished. At around 47 minutes, the fortune teller sees the evil King Ganon, and says that the silver arrows will be needed to defeat him. Zelda recalls that those were what Link used to vanquish Ganon before, but is perturbed that the evil king was perhaps resurrected. She quickly quashes her concern and calls the youth to return to the summit. There, she praises the hero as the riddles of the tablet are solved thanks to their courage. She recites a spell destroying the stone slab on the mountain, revealing the silver arrows and a portal. Zelda imparts some final advice on how to defeat Ganon. After Ganon's defeat, Zelda and the hero meet Agana by one of Death Mountain's caves. Zelda apologizes for worrying Agana, but he brushes it off before asserting that they should take her home. The princess refuses, as she must say something before the youth leaves, and so the trio go together to return the Master Sword, which the Hero of Light picked up during their journey. During this time, Zelda monologues, explaining why everything happened. She notes that while Link felled Ganon's body, his essence lived on. That evil energy dragged the Hero of Light into their world, and Ganon was counting on taking that power that the Land bestowed on the Hero of Light for himself, making the world fall into darkness. She thanks the hero and bids them goodbye before they disappear in a flash of light. Zelda herself is able to take a much more active role in the story, as she is never kidnapped, and her prophetic dreams lead to her making key decisions where she both discovers and assists the Hero of Light. At the end of each week, Zelda is included in the discussions for the next move for the Hero of Light's quest. Zelda uses her telepathy often to pass on information to the hero. She is also established to have been quite close to the absent Link, as they have talked of his adventures, securing her important knowledge that helps the current hero, such as boss weaknesses and the location of the Book of Pandora item. Zelda is given more prevalence at the end of week 3, as she can read Ancient Hylian, which allows her to be a useful companion for the Hero of Light, as this is a place where Agana lacks. As such, she becomes a temporary companion in week 4. Without her, the hero is unable to obtain the silver arrows to defeat Ganon. As with voice acting, Zelda is given some semblance of a personality. While she is, in general, the good, well-mannered and kind princess, she is willing to show her frustration.
おお、ゼルダ姫ではありませんか。
昨日、私はまた夢を見ました。アジノカ、私たちが戻ってくるまで待っていてください。
しかし。
さあ、参りましょう。
はあ、姫。
This is partly relevant in the third week, with the fortune teller constantly divining nonsense unrelated to the specific location of the Book of Pandora. She also expresses when she is unnerved and worried about goings on, as she finds that she cannot divine the future at present, as she must be calm of heart to do so. Though this could be some stubbornness in not forcing herself to be in a state she isn't in naturally. However, in the end, as always, Zelda is limited by her being a princess. After venturing out by herself, going to investigate a strange light, in spite of her ill dreams, Zelda is sent back home to her castle by Agana for her safety, despite being fine on her own up until now. Then she gets attacked and can't do anything. Granted, in prior games, Zelda does not have any particular offensive power, as her skills mainly lie in telepathy. Furthermore, it would be strange for her to suddenly be able to fight with how she was established in A Link to the Past as needing protection and saving. Zelda herself even chooses to stay behind in Part 1 to stay safe and not worry her retainers, by not joining the hero in journeying to Kakariko. It is a strange choice since Kakariko is a safe location, and in week 4 she chooses to join the hero on the whim of her dream, and is somehow perfectly safe being left on top of Death Mountain, where monsters can be found nearby. She then ignores Agana, imploring her to go home the next time he brings her up, mainly because she wants to bid the hero farewell properly and explain everything that happened. Her limitations as a princess just seems to be up to debate by the whim of the storyteller, and what they suddenly want her to do. The game certainly did build on one aspect of Zelda's character that is often underused or ignored: her wisdom. A lot of Zelda's actions derive from the knowledge that she has accumulated. She knows when she is and isn't needed, though she certainly is much more useful overall than Agana. For being an obscure spin-off, Ancient Stone Tablets does an amazing job of expanding Zelda's role and character without completely breaking her established character from the game's source material. A magical musician named Octavo, fearing the return of Ganon, attempts to steal the Triforce, causing it to split. He is, however, able to create the Golden Lute and put the King of Hyrule, Link, Zelda, and numerous others into a deep sleep. To save the kingdom, the Triforce of Power summoned Cadence, a gravedigger turned hero from another world. Upon arrival, Cadence travels through a nearby crypt, finding 2 portals where Link and Zelda are sleeping. After entering the portal, Cadence uses the Triforce of Power to wake which hero you picked. That hero sets out to defeat Octavo and collect the magical instruments that he has altered with his music. Along the way, the hero finds the friend Cadence didn't wake up in Kakariko Village and finds a potion in a nearby crypt to wake him up. With Link and Zelda united, they continue their quest to defeat Octavo. After defeating 3 of the champions, Link and Zelda meet up with Cadence, who is beginning to realise she may not be able to return to her own world. She joins the Hylian hero's quest, and together they track down and vanquish the 4th champion. It is here that the heroes learn that Octavo is creating these champions in order to fight Ganon. With the 4 champions defeated, Link, Zelda and Cadence break the barrier preventing them from entering Hyrule Castle. Upon reaching Octavo's lair, he steals the 4 instruments back and questions if the heroes could prove to be his champions instead. After taking out the instruments and defeating Octavo, a portal opens, sucking the golden lute into it. Octavo flees further into the castle, lamenting that without the lute, Ganon cannot be defeated. Link, Zelda and Cadence pursue him through a portal into the future. The heroes enter the dishevelled future Hyrule Castle, discovering Octavo slumped, who mutters out that he couldn't defeat Ganon on his own. The trio enters the throne room where Ganon lies waiting. He freezes two of the heroes, forcing the third to free them while being assaulted by monsters. After many freezings and freeing from light, 3 triangular lights shine down on the throne room floor. The trio stands on the lights, causing a ray of golden light to rain down and destroy Ganon. With Ganon vanquished, Cadence remembers that she is still far from home. Link and Zelda, well, mostly her to be honest, tell Cadence about the Triforce's wish-granting power when it's whole. Zelda thanks Cadence for her assistance in saving her kingdom and instructs her to think about what she wishes for most. Link and Zelda hold her hands with their own, uniting the Triforce between them, and Cadence is sent back home. Peace is restored to Hyrule. Even more so than Hyrule Warriors, Cadence of Hyrule actually makes Zelda the equal of Link in the narrative, considering from the beginning you have the choice of picking either Link or Zelda. The main difference between them is their starting location and the weapons they can use, as Zelda cannot use a short sword, long sword, or a shovel. Zelda has the same base abilities and functionality as Link, and Cadence by extension, as she can swim, use items, move heavy items, and die in a variety of ways. Just like Hyrule Warriors, Zelda uses a rapier primarily, but that's where the similarity ends. Zelda has 2 magic spells that she can cast, Nehru's Love and Din's Fire, which act similar to how they do in Smash Bros., with Nehru's Love reflecting enemy attacks and protecting Zelda from harm for a short time, and Din's Fire acting as a controllable magic bomb. Zelda's skill set is great for duels, but not so much for crowd control. However, Zelda can equip other weapons that may alleviate this. Zelda can use a broadsword, spear, bow, and flail like the other characters. She and Cadence are also able to use a dagger. Evidently, as I mentioned in the original video, Cadence of Hyrule does fit in with the general concept of Zelda taking on an active fighting role in the narrative, and in some ways does better than the other games in this collection. She's Damsel, the same as Link. She isn't pushed out of the narrative to stay safe, she doesn't have to hide as another person, and Link isn't the most important figure in the story that everyone is drawn to and helps. Congrats, Cadence of Hyrule! You may be ignored a lot because you're a rhythm-based spin-off, but you did what Nintendo wouldn't, and made Zelda equal. Now that we've covered all of the previous games and established how they hold up in my original analysis and timeline of Princess Zelda, we can at long last look at the present state of the princess. Later. We are just filling in the gaps here. You will hear about the most recent titles, post Breath of the Wild and Age of Calamity, in the next video.